Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. This is a very special night. We are so pleased to have John Meyer here reading his poetry from his wonderful and award-winning book, which I'm going to show, Love Poems from Vermont. What makes this doubly special, other than a local author reading wonderful poems, is that John is doing a special fundraiser for the library in the month of February. If people would like to be what we call the patron donor, which is donations of $100 to $249, you can be entered into a raffle for a print of one of his photographs, which you'll actually see one of the photos tonight. Gifts or donations over $250, you will receive a free copy of the book and entered into a raffle for another print. So if any of that delights and tickles you, please contact the library and we can set something up. It's very nice when people in the community come and share their talent with us. And then if it's a gift to the library, that's extra delightful for us as well. I would like to let you know that tonight's event is being recorded. So if you do not want to be seen on camera, please feel free to stop your video. I'm going to mute everyone when John gets started, but I see everyone's muted now so that we can have a nice clean audio. And I am going to now introduce John. John Meyer has written for The Village Voice, Art News, New Art Examiner, Visions Quarterly, Q, Dialogue, Art New England, Fictional Cafe, and many other publications. Meyer led a small team producing a film about one of his students, Dan Keplinger. This film, King Gimp, won the Oscar for Best Short Documentary at the 2000 Academy Awards. Meyer's work has been in 60 solo and group exhibitions, 18 museum exhibitions across the US, Europe, Australia, and Asia, and his work is in 20 museums and public collections globally. He has received 12 competitive grants, including a National Endowment for the Arts grant. His last book, Love Poems from Vermont, Reflections on an Inner and Outer State, won 10 awards, including Best National Poetry Book 2019 to 2020 by Reader Views. His next book, Love Poems from New England, is due to be published soon. He is currently Vice President of the Independent Publishers of New England. His love for Vermont's mountain peaks and seasons has inspired him since he was a boy. He and his wife, Deborah, live in Norwich. He is on Twitter at John Meyer Poetry, and his website is www.johnmeyerpoetry.com. I am just so thrilled to have John here reading, and I am going to now turn it over to John, and then we'll kick it off. So, hello, John.
Hello, Lucinda, and hello, neighbors. It's great of you to come this evening. I hope that I'll see you all at Dan and Witt's or at the Norwich Public Library or at the bookstore or wherever around town. Let me say that this is a labor of love of 16 years. I wrote hundreds and hundreds of poems and then chose ones that I would search around the state of Vermont in what was a wonderful treasure hunt to find images that I could take photographs of to go with the poems. And I'll tell a story about each one, a little bit about how I found the place and about the poem, etc. So thank you. So the cover of this is an image that I took one morning driving on Route 4, and I was in Quechee and looked out the window and saw this amazing scene. I think this is a scene that we could see on a morning like any morning this week. It was a little warm. The snow was giving off a mist. The sun was coming through the clouds. It was just magical. So I thought that would be a good image for the cover. So let me read this first and then I'll tell you the story behind it. This is Bianca, actually. I wrote the poem first and it said, "You sent your white horse. You sent your white horse to carry me away, my beloved. where I go doesn't matter anymore as long as you are the destination. So after writing this poem, I looked around all around Vermont for years, literally years. I started writing these poems, as I say, about 16, 17 years ago. And I couldn't find a white horse. And then one day I was out on my bike on the New Boston Road and was riding along, and I saw, well, who I found out later was Bianca, kind of trotting around in this ring just off the road. So I got off my bike and went and knocked on the door and asked permission if it was okay if I took some photographs. They were delighted. And I spent hours taking many photographs. This is the town of, Norwich in the background, some of its forest. And interesting story about Bianca. She was available for giving writing lessons. And one of the things the owner told me was that when a new person came to get a writing lesson, Bianca would like to test them out to see what they were like. So as they walked up to Bianca, Bianca would take one of her hooves and lightly put it on the person's foot, and then very slowly increase the pressure just to see what the reaction would be. So Bianca was kind of a scamp. She would never hurt anyone, but she just wanted to see what the reaction would be of a potential writer. This next one is called So Bright. Hard to see where I am. I can only follow the scent down the path to your heartbeat. And this is a scene from the playing fields, of course, up toward the sky. Another Norwich scene. Okay, thank you, Lucinda. Next. Snow in Winter Woods. Snow in Winter Woods is silent with your sound. Peace pervades below the level of a whisper. And my wife, Deborah, and I are, we love to go out in the woods around our house and around Norwich and go out on snowshoes in the winter. And as many of you know, the snow absorbs all the sound, and it's just so peaceful and quiet. The other thing that I think of is Bill McKibben over in Middlebury once said that we shouldn't take any snowstorms for granted. And I say we shouldn't take any snow in the woods for granted. So it's precious, and let's enjoy it while we can. Thanks. Heart whispers. Mind shouts, heart whispers. Let me listen to you barely above midnight silence. So this is an image taken from Norwich. It's hard to tell, but I took many, many, many photographs of the full moon every month when it was full. And this particular one happened to have a little tinge of orange in the clouds around the moon. And it was just so wonderful. I thought that it would be a good image to go with Heart Whispers. Thank you. You may recognize this farm. All I inherited. I spent all I inherited from the estate of your loving glances. No riches are needed to approach my beloved. So again, I visited this farm. You may know that in driving up Main Street past Dan and Witt's and up the hill there, out the Union Village Road, as you come back toward town again, you see this farm. And it's such a beautiful farm with the mountains in the distance. Thank you. Joy's opportunity. Sorrow can etch the stone, but joy's opportunity returns with each sunrise. Now, for this poem, I searched for some stone carvings or stone etchings around the state and did a bunch of research, and then found out that down near Bellows Falls, these petroglyphs exist there. And the way to see them is there's a bridge called the Villas Bridge with a V, which goes from Bellows Falls over into New Hampshire. It's not being used anymore. In fact, it's condemned. But it won't take any traffic, but one could walk out on the bridge and look back at the cliff down below and see these if the light is right. I've made many trips there to try to find a day when the light was right and I could actually see the stones and see the carvings. Now, the stones in the foreground were just tossed there when the bridge was built in 1927. And so the town of Bellows Falls has applied to make this a heritage site so that these petroglyphs, which were carved by the Abenaki Native Americans of this region, sometime between 300 years ago and 3,000 years ago. The town really wants to have this conserved and set up so that people can enjoy this for a long time to come. And maybe very carefully take some of the stones away to find some more of the carvings down below. Thank you. This one's called Disentangle. Disentangle the inner noise until all is still and you and I identify as timeless companions. Now, this scene is also out the New Boston Road in Norwich, and it was unusual that in the afternoon, I had ridden by this on my bike many times, but this particular time, that roof of the barn was just lit up with an orange glow. And I just thought that that was so unusual and so beautiful. I had to stop, get off my bike, and take a series of photos. It's just incredible how beautiful some scenery is in Norwich. We're so fortunate to have that. Thank you, Lucinda. Sharing. No choice but to give whatever love one has to strangers who may be difficult to love. I think this is one of the challenges of our lives. How do we love people that we don't know? Just by thinking highly of them and just by sharing positive thoughts with them. It's a challenge sometime, but one worthy of pursuing. Now, I hiked up Mount Mansfield, and this is near the summit of Mount Mansfield, looking back toward Smuggler's Notch and up toward Canada in the distance. And it just seemed like the Green Mountains got progressively bluer off in the distance, and it was a stunning, beautiful, inspiring sight. And I enjoyed the hike as well. Thanks. Moon Lady. Moon Lady floats in on a quiet breath after the sun to capture the rain in her embrace where creamy mists rise. This too is an image taken in Norwich toward the full moon. And I waited for hours on some full moon nights till the clouds drifted slowly by and took lots of photographs and then picked this one out. And it's really about my loving wife of many decades, Deborah, who is my love and my moon lady. She's chuckling in the background. Thank you. Next. Please accept me as I am, so world's illusion dissipates, and you spiral me past any separation. This is an image of the Waterbury Reservoir, which is a beautiful place, like many places in Vermont. And I thought it was so peaceful with the bird just flying by. Thank you. Letting go. Letting go of all my wants but you prompts me to peer within your blinding reflection. Now, some of you may recognize this site as one of the great successes in the mitigation of difficult environmental challenges in Vermont. This is the site of the old Elizabeth mine, out on the road that goes out the new Boston Road and then to the mine road out towards South Stratford. And you may know also that it became a Superfund site because the copper tailings from the copper mine, which was a huge mine and one of the biggest mines in the country back in its day, a long time back. Those copper tailings were leaching into the brooks and then into the Opampanoosic River and into the Connecticut River and killing lots of fish and other aquatic life in their path, in the path of these tailings and the cupric oxide, et cetera. So after the mitigation of this spot, it was turned into a solar array, which powers many, many homes in the area. And what a wonderful outcome for a very difficult environmental situation. Thanks. Next. Burn the distance between your smile and our embrace, my love. We are so close that I breathe your breath. Now, this is based on a story by a gentleman by the name of Balkalchuri, who was the chief assistant of an individual in India named Meyer Baba. And Balkalchuri talked about burning the distance, and I adapted that for this poem. Now, Deborah and I were invited to a neighbor's bonfire a few summers back. And so the beautiful embers and the fire there with friends and neighbors gathered was just a wonderful sight. I took a series of photographs and decided to use this one. Thanks. Icicles. Dripping light pipes play, float a river, sea, and back to score blue as weightless wisps. Our rondo begins again. The rondo in music, of course, is something that repeats and develops and comes back, just like the seasons and just like the cycle of the water coming down as snow, melting into the river, going out to the ocean, evaporating, coming back as clouds, and the whole rondo or the whole cycle begins again. Now, this was on a particular morning a few winters ago when the sun was shining through those icicles. And you may have some of these around your house now. I know this morning when I looked out, we had some icicles dripping off our porch roof that were similar to these, not exactly the same, but reminded me of when I saw these back a few years back. Thanks. Long after departing from your homestead, a sweet fragrance lingers. I return again to places you have walked to soak in your blissful presence. I'm sure some of us have experienced this when you visit a friend or a neighbor or visit an acquaintance or visit a close one. We come away with that glowing feeling of that sweet fragrance. I thought that an appropriate image of this would be to place a rose in the winter snow, and found a field nearby and stuck the rose in the snow and took this photograph. Thanks. You pump the very breath into my lungs and the blood into my heart until every cell calls out your name. This one was an odyssey, a bit like the White Horse, because I looked all over Vermont to try to find an active pump where someone was still using it in a barnyard or somewhere where individuals were still hand pumping water out of a well. And I couldn't find one after looking high and wide, but I found this pump that an individual is willing to sell to me. It wasn't all that expensive. It's a copper pump. So I bought it and brought it home and installed it in my place. So that's looking out the backyard at this pump. And so it reminds me of the older days when water was pumped by hand in our state. Thanks. The brook murmurs in spring, and returning birds sing to distant lovers to draw them closer, ever closer. This is a small stream that flows into the New Boston Brook and then on out eventually into the Connecticut River. And you can see about midway down the right side, there's a patch of snow there. So this will likely be a scene that one could see coming up maybe next month, in the month of March or early April. But the gurgling sound of the brook was just so peaceful and relaxing to hear and wonderful to see on going for a spring walk. Thank you. Your dream floats through trees in shrouded white desire, while behind the scene awakens unmeasured origin of space and time. I like the play of scene that could be S-E-E-N or S-C-E-N-E. And so, it can mean the white scene that we're looking at and also beyond what we can see. But this is actually our backyard, and it was after snowfall and the sun was shining through the trees, and sometimes Norwich is just so beautiful at any time of day and in any season. And this was one of those breathtaking moments. Thank you. Your door. A glance has brought me to your door. I knock, you open, let me in, and become my source of inspiration to light my path. Now, you may recognize this, for those of you who live in Norwich or visit here, that this was the door to the cemetery below the cemetery, I should say, on the road from the middle of town out called Beaver Meadow Road. This door has since been replaced. There's a new door there, but I just thought that this old corroded piece of metal on this door went so well with the thought of the cemetery and the storage that it was used for in the winter in previous times. And the corroded metal really in the sunlight there was so beautiful. Thank you. Next. This is a scene from an image in my new book that's coming out soon called Love Poems from New England, Reflections on States of Mind and States of Heart. This is actually the Walden Pond in autumn. And I'd read so much of Thoreau and wanted to visit there. And so I did a couple of years ago and took this photograph, one of many. Your single word could make me wise if I would only listen to your eternity in this moment. So it's an homage to Thoreau and also the scene and how beautiful it was and the piece that inspired him. Thank you. A world in a lover's eye. Hear a symphony in a whisper. Feel a bonfire in an ember. Taste an ocean in a drop. Smell a fresh landscape in a blade of grass. See the world in a lover's eye. I had wanted for some years to visit Martha's Vineyard, and this is the Aquanaut Cliffs at the end of Martha's Vineyard that I visited 2 years ago. And it's interesting, while I was taking this series of photographs, a distinguished looking gentleman walked up to me and started a conversation. And so, he was very friendly, and just to kind of make conversation, I said, well, where are you from? Where do you live? And he said, well, you see that house down the way there? That's where I live. I said, oh, well, nice. Have you lived there for a while? And he said, well, my family has lived there for quite a long time. I said, oh, really? Well, just to continue the conversation, I asked him, well, how long has your family been there? And he said, well, they've been in that house and other houses around the area for over 10,000 years. And I know from speaking to lots of Vermonters sometimes proud themselves of being multi-generation in Vermont. This gentleman was a member of the Wampanoag Native American tribe, and he told me that his family greeted the Pilgrims way back. So a very interesting conversation with a very beautiful scene. And that's why I chose that to be on the cover of the book, as well as go with this poem. Next. Elegy. Leaving life this time, everything you said is true. Gathered in your arms, brilliant light brought me back this time. Well, you can see from the entrance there and the carving on it that this is the Hope Cemetery in Barrie. I highly recommend that if you haven't visited that you do. It's up on Maple Avenue, up outside of town. And it has many, many beautiful sculptures there that were done by the Barrie granite carvers over decades and even more than 100 years, I believe. The story itself of the poem is about an experience I had when in my home in Norwich, I started getting all the classic symptoms of a heart attack. I had pain radiating down my left arm. I had deep pressure on my chest, and I fainted. And of course, Deborah was here and got very worried about me. So she helped me into the car when I came to and rushed me off to the DHMC emergency room, where they ushered me in, put me on a gurney, and started a number of IVs. And at that time, I thought that was the end of my lifetime. And suddenly I could see the white light. My consciousness was hovering above the gurney, and I was looking down at myself, while all along I felt I was being gathered up in the arms of all the wise ones from history. And everything seemed to be okay. Everything seemed to be peaceful and calm, and everything seemed to be very pleasant. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm dying, but if this is what dying is like, this really is quite wonderful. And then the medications from the IV hit, and I was back on the table and thinking, well, I somehow have to share what I can with others. So that's the story of Elegy. Thank you. That leaves us a little bit of time for some questions. If anyone has some questions they would like to ask, Lucinda, can you make it so that people can be unmuted and we can hear their questions?
Actually, people get to have that their own choice of unmuting, I guess,
Okay.
if they would like to unmute. Yes, I see some people have unmuted. Questions, please.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Hi, I'm wondering when your next book is coming out.
I hope that it'll be out in the next month or two.
Uh-huh.
So been working hard on it. I've got some preliminary advanced reader copies, so they say, for some reviews, and hope it'll be out real soon. And we'll certainly let it be known that it's out. By the way, it'll be announced on www.johnmeyerpoetry.com and where you can get it and where it'll be available.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good.
Thank you for asking.
Beautiful photos.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
It starts with a story. So sometime in my life, I'm Jenny. Hi, John.
Hi, Jenny.
I don't know. I thought I would say I'm Jenny. Sometime a while ago meaning maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 years, when I was beginning or into formal study for theology, or maybe just before that, maybe longer ago. Anyway, a long time ago, I was in a conversation with someone who said something along the lines of a really good love song. The object of love or subject of love can be replaced with someone's image of what God might be like. That's a really good song. And I identified that quote, listening to your poetry. Because it could be a person, a relationship, or it could be something beyond that in the essence of life itself. And I'm really glad and grateful for that. So I thought I would share that and ask you, do you think your poetry is a human object, or is it beyond that, or both?
I think, Jenny, I think it's both. And thank you for your comments. I think that that really resonates. And I feel that the use of you, which is capitalized and at the beginning of the line on my poems, refers to, it could be that you that is beyond us all. It could be you that's a very special person. It could be you that's a beautiful place we live in. It could be you that's all of those. So thank you for asking.
John, I have a question. Do you take photos and then a photo is the muse, or do you write the poetry and then sort of keep your eyes open for the photo? Like, is there one way or the other, or does it just kind of organically happen?
Well, thank you for asking, Lucinda. I definitely write the poems first. And I wrote hundreds and hundreds of poems and then kind of boiled those down, revised some, threw out others, deleted a bunch, and got it down and down and down, and then started looking for places that would complement the poems. So some of the poems that I wrote that I was fine with didn't make it into the book because I didn't find a place that complemented the poem. But I wrote and wrote and wrote over 16 years so that I had enough poems to make this happen. And again, it was a wonderful treasure hunt to have these poems in my mind and also in my computer and printed out, and just traveling around looking for places that would match the poems. It was a wonderful experience.
Well, I know I said this to you the other night when we did a run through, but again, it's just such a burst to the eyes to see some of those colors. Particularly, I mean, I love the New Fallen Snow and the Snow and Woods poem, the capturing of the black and the white, but then to suddenly see that blue sky or the colors of fall or that vibrant green really is just, it gets me so excited for what's next on our seasonal arc of time here. But to see New England in all its glory is just joyful with beautiful words.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I just hope we all can take moments, I'm sure we do, to just appreciate the beauty of such a place that we live in as Norwich in the Upper Valley and Vermont. It's just, we are really, really fortunate to live here.
As you might know, I drive a school bus, and my route takes me up on Bragg Hill, and between the beginning of the route and the top of Bragg Hill, the very first, after the S curve, just after Happy Hill turns off, I have about 3 students who might get on the bus, but they always get rides. So I leave early and I go right by their stops. And I try to spend 10 minutes every single morning with that view and that place. And I do different things. Sometimes I have to inspect the bus because I didn't get that done before I got on the road. Sometimes I just sit there and look out the windows. And sometimes, even this time of year, I'll open the door for a better sight. And I would say that your poetry books would be a boon companion to that time and space in the day. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I really appreciate that. And I know the vista you're talking about, it is a very beautiful view of the hillsides and the fields and the trees and the mountains. It's really wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, it's right in front of Peter and Maggie's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
Lucinda,
everyone for
helping out
joining
on
us.